Welcome to Wealth Beyond the White Coat, a show where we dive deep into the world of financial freedom for dentists and medical professionals. I'm your host, Darren Flesher, a dentist with a passion for uncovering the strategies that lead to a prosperous life beyond the office. Every episode will explore the avenues of alternative investing, tax mitigation, and secrets to build wealth that the textbooks don't teach you. Whether you're looking to enhance your financial literacy, discover new investment opportunities, or simply find a better way to manage your money, this is the place where your financial health is the core of our conversations. Welcome to Wealth Beyond the White Coat, where your journey to financial clarity and freedom begins. All right, welcome back to Wealth Beyond the White Coat. Today, I'm excited to have a special guest, Brannon Moncrief, CEO of McLerran and Associates. He's an expert in the dental industry, specifically when it comes to guiding dentists through the complex world of practice transitions. With years of experience helping practice owners increase their value and successfully sell or acquire practices, Brannon brings an incredible depth of knowledge to the table. Today, we'll be diving into how practice transitions can impact your financial future, how to best prepare for a sale, the trends shaping the dental industry, including the rise of DSOs and private equity. So if you're a dentist thinking about the future of your practice, you won't want to miss this conversation. And with that, welcome to the show, Brannon.
Hey, Darren. Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, man. Glad to have you on. I'd love to just start with the beginning. I know you've been on a lot of podcasts, but people might be hearing you for the first time on mine. I know you've been deeply involved in transitions for quite a while now. Can you share a little bit about your personal journey and what led you to maybe focus on dental practice transitions specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a finance degree from Texas A&M University, and I went to work for a dental lender that specialized in lending money to dentists all across the country to acquire, start, and expand practices straight out of college. And I spent about a decade there working with a lot of dentists and a lot of brokers, accountants, attorneys across the country that were involved in dental practice sales and transitions. Loved it, but decided I wanted to leave banking about 13 years ago. And at that point in time, I purchased McLerran and Associates. And at the time, a small mom and pop practice brokerage shop, just doing traditional practice sales, what we call doctor to doctor private buyer deals. And grew that business significantly. And then about 5-6 years ago, got heavily involved in the DSO and private equity space. Our company is based in Austin, Texas. We now have offices all over the country. But being in Austin, we were on the forefront, being in Texas, of a lot of the consolidation that started to occur, and realized that we needed to build out a process, build out a team to help large practice owners that are, looking at going down the DSO path. So today we've got offices in Austin, San Diego, Atlanta. We have a team of 13 people that work with our clients on a daily basis. And we have a division that still does the traditional doctor-to-doctor practice sales. And then I lead the division that handles the larger transactions involving DSOs and private equity.
Nice. Thanks. I appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned you've been doing this, and you guys have grown and expanded. What have you seen as far as the dental landscape, especially with private equity and DSOs? How's that kind of evolved over time from your perspective?
Yeah, it's evolved pretty rapidly, obviously, over the past 5 years. Up until then, the options were relatively limited from a DSO private equity perspective. They were just dipping their toe in the water. Primarily, Heartland was the one out there buying the majority of practices up until about 5, maybe 7 years ago. And then private equity realized that dentistry is really recession-proof, now proven to be pandemic-proof, and became really the hottest vertical that private equity was investing in, specifically in the healthcare industry. Going into COVID, there was a lot of private equity interest in this space. Coming out of COVID, once dentistry arguably rebounded faster than any other healthcare business, those private equity firms that were in really doubled down and started acquiring practices at an even faster clip. And those private equity firms that were eyeing an investment in dentistry pulled the trigger, bought a platform, and started building a DSO. So literally almost overnight, post-COVID, the number of DSOs doubled, maybe even tripled. Demand went up, valuations went up, and more clinicians decided to take a hard look at going down that path. So our business has obviously evolved and changed pretty rapidly as the industry has evolved and changed. As far as the traditional practice sales, doctor to doctor deals, that market really hasn't changed dramatically over the past 10 years. There's still a lot of young entrepreneurial dentists that are looking to pursue practice ownership. We've obviously got the baby boomer generation retiring and selling their businesses. So that market's remained robust. I will say the biggest change in the more traditional private practice sales environment is that kids are coming out of school with a lot of student loan debt. They've got high expectations from a lifestyle perspective. They're looking to buy larger practices with significant cash flow. Those antiquated offices, small facility, revenue under 750,000, those practices have become less valuable and harder to sell, whereas practices with 5+ operatories, a million plus in revenue have become more valuable and easier to sell both in the DSO world and the private buyer world.
Now, sometimes it's been my understanding or experience that at some point you grow too big to maybe have one of those private sales. Financing from a bank can become challenging. Is there a dividing line in your mind, or literally a dividing line where it just gets too big for an individual to kind of take down and DSO is really your only option?
It's always possible to transition your business in some form or fashion to a private buyer, but it gets infinitely more complicated and less financially compelling once revenue crosses about $2 million. Once revenue crosses 2 million, the private buyer pool shrinks substantially and valuation actually starts to pull back a bit. Whereas in the DSO world, valuation ramps up exponentially and demand increases substantially. So that's where I look at the demarcation point. Most of our clients that have businesses with revenue north of 2 million that are looking to monetize the practice tend to go the DSO route because there's a substantial gap between the private buyer valuation and the DSO valuation. And then when we talk about practices with revenue in the 1.2 million to 2 million range, we're normally talking about what does the private buyer option look like? What does the DSO option look like? Compare and contrast the pros and cons and decide what's the appropriate path. 50% of our clients choose to transition it to a private buyer, and 50% choose to transition it in the DSO space when you're in that 1.2 million to $2 million range.
All right, cool. And with the rising influence of DSOs, how do you help dentists decide between which one to choose? Is it just financial? Is there more that goes into this from a consideration standpoint? What are how do you guys help your clients decide and make that decision?
It's multifaceted.
Hey, I just wanted to interrupt the show real quick and tell you about an exclusive member discount for Legacy Point Group members. The company is called Gelt, and they're both tax planning and tax preparation. We connected because their CEO actually comes from a family of physicians, and he understands the financial complexities that healthcare professionals face these days. Legacy Point is honored to partner with Gelt because it's our shared mission to empower successful professionals with optimal tax and financial outcomes. For your 20% discount off financial planning and tax preparation and priority access with their onboarding, become a member over at legacypointgroup.com.
In our initial discovery call with our clients, casual 30-minute call, we're just getting to know each other. The first thing I'm going to ask is, what's your why, right? What are your goals? And let's talk about what type of practice you have, how many ops, how many docs, annual revenue, profitability, patient mix, stuff like that. And then go through the exercise of doing an EBIT analysis and quantifying, all right, what does this look like economically? What are your goals, both economically and just from a lifestyle perspective, from a practice perspective? And based on your why, based on how your practice is engineered economically, what's the best path to go down? Traditional practice sale or a DSO affiliation? For most of our clients, the economics certainly matter, right? It's very impactful. For a lot of our clients, their practice is their most valuable asset. They've got a lot of their net worth tied up in it. Fit and feel, who you sell to, the deal structure is equally important to the valuation. So first and foremost, I think it's important for doctors to get educated, understand what your practice is worth, private buyer perspective, DSO perspective. What's your EBITDA? Then what are your pain points? And what's your exit strategy? What is your runway to exiting your business? Whether it's relocation, retirement, pursuing another career, whatever that might be. Let's unpack all of that, get you educated, and then decide what path it makes the most sense to go down. And if you're going to go down the DSO path, the key is don't respond to an unsolicited offer. Make sure you've got a strong sell-side advisor and that you're creating the optionality and leverage that you need to find the best fit, negotiate the best deal structure, and maximize the valuation. If you talk to one DSO, you've talked to one DSO. You need to date around before you get married. You need to create leverage through having multiple offers to choose from. And then once you identify who's the best fit, you use that competitive environment to negotiate the most favorable economic outcome.
All right. And I know you guys emphasize the importance of creating value before transitioning a practice. So, what are some of the ways that a dentist or you guys can help with the dentist increase the value of their practice prior to selling?
So first of all, don't wait till the day you're ready to sell to call us, right? And start getting educated on what drives value and what drives EBITDA. So one, the cleaner your financials, the better. So making sure that you're reporting all the cash that's coming into the practice, making sure that you're not being overly aggressive in running personal and discretionary expenses through your business in the couple of years leading up to the sale. If you have multiple locations, making sure that you're maintaining separate entities and tax returns, or at least separate financials and practice management software for each of the locations that you own. Optimizing revenue and producing as much as you possibly can leading up to a sale. In other words, keeping your foot on the gas and not cutting back, not losing sight of the ball leading up to a sale, and then making sure that you're controlling overhead. And obviously over the past couple of years, we have had a lot of downward pressure on pricing with PPO infiltration and a lot of upward pressure on overhead. So it's squeezing cash flow. So you need to make sure that you're mindful of your numbers, both on a monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. Your numbers are as clean as possible, and you plan in advance for a sale to talk about all the different factors involved in valuation. It's not just numbers. Your clinical service mix, your patient mix, your facility and technology, your location, all of those things play into the ultimate outcome you're going to achieve when you go to sell, and then your runway to exit. In a private buyer sale, a more traditional practice sale, typically we're talking about a short-term transition, maybe a few weeks, a few months, and you have the ability to exit your business. In a DSO sale, except for very rare circumstances, they're going to want you to stick around 3 to 5 years. If you're within that window, you need to start talking about it now rather than waiting until the day you're ready to exit. The DSO option is typically off the table if that's the case.
Yeah, yeah. And on the contrary, what are some of the mistakes people make when they're in that window where they might be thinking about a sale? Have you seen maybe some anecdotal stories or just concepts of what people are maybe doing that are hurting themselves when they're looking to maybe prepare for a sale?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, I think, is waiting too late, right? Not making that call early enough and pre-plan and prepare your business for a sale. We've seen a lot of, people not reporting cash collections recently, significant cash collections, and that is pure EBITDA. And when we talk about EBITDA, every dollar of EBITDA is worth $7, $8 in value. So every dollar of revenue you don't report, or every dollar of extra expense that you're writing off through your business, is going to impact your valuation substantially. So not really being mindful about how they're managing their financials, waiting till the last minute, oftentimes responding to unsolicited offers without getting educated and having proper representation and all of their advisors at the table. One of the big phenomenons we've seen recently is we're often hired to do a valuation for a practice owner who's looking to sell all or a piece of their practice to an associate or a third-party dentist. And we get the financials in and we quickly realize that this is a multi-doctor, multi-million-dollar revenue practice with EBITDA of, $700,000, $800,000, $1 million. it might be worth $8 million in the DSO world, but only $3 million in the private buyer world. But they've already made some promises to their associates about selling them a piece or all of the business. And then when they see the valuation gap between the DSO world and the private buyer world, they're like, whoa, hold on, time out. I don't want to leave that money on the table, but I've already made these promises. I've already had these conversations. So I think being very mindful about the conversations that you're having with your associates about buying into the practice or eventually becoming your successor, be careful with those conversations. Be intentional, because they're going to remember every single word you say. They'll remember the day, the time, what the weather was outside when you had that conversation. You sometimes thinking you're having a casual conversation with an associate is a very serious conversation for them. And if you pull the rug out from under them and decide to pursue a DSO affiliation, it can be very problematic, especially if they're important to the business and major producers. So I think it's very important to be intentional and mindful about the conversations you're having with your team and with your associates along the way.
Yeah, and you're right. There's way more to this than just money. It's not just transactional. There's people considering legacy and there's emotion attached to it. It's your baby. If you started it or if it's passed through, your dad had it or whatever, there's a lot more to this equation than just what is it worth. But when you have a practice owner who's trying to understand their value and the potential value, how do you help them navigate that when there's an emotional attachment to it? Is that part of what you guys help them with? Is it purely transactional and numbers with you guys? And how do you guys play into that decision?
We spend a tremendous amount of time talking about the emotional aspect of selling the business, because even if you don't think that you're emotionally attached to your business, wait till I put a letter of intent in front of you, or wait till the night before closing. You're going to need to come to grips with the fact that for most of our clients, it is their legacy. They have a big part of their identity tied up in their business. And that's why I think it's so important to start thinking about it early rather than the day you're ready to sell, because it is a process to get comfortable, not just with the economics, but also with the emotional aspect of monetizing your business. So we spend a lot of time talking about that and making sure that our clients are not just fiscally ready, but also emotionally ready, because it will play out in the process if they haven't talked about the emotional component. And we often see some clients that really, that has not been at the forefront of their mind. They will act out during the process. And we all have personality flaws, right? And when we're put under a lot of stress, when there's a very emotionally impactful and financially impactful process that we're going through, oftentimes people have a tendency to act out. And that's where you see that emotion come out. So I'd much rather have that conversation pre-market before we start talking with potential buyers, and make sure that you are ready financially and emotionally to take that step. And if you're not, that's fine. Let's press pause and give you a little time to get ready, or get your shop in order if there's some things you need to do with your practice to prepare it to be more marketable and more valuable.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit offline about investing. So let's talk a little bit about the money side of this. Money isn't math, so I don't want to discount all the emotion and stuff. Here we're talking about wealth creation and financial freedom for dentists. How do you think a dental transition plays a role in building long-term financial security for a practice owner?
Are you overwhelmed by dental school loans or practice-related debt, credit cards, mortgage payments, car loans, and more? Imagine a future where your financial burdens are not just reduced, but on track to be eliminated entirely. That's what our soon-to-be launched solution offers: a powerful, tailored version of the Shred method designed specifically for dentists. This isn't your typical debt reduction strategy. It's a groundbreaking approach to managing cash flow, cutting down interest payments, and accelerating your journey to financial freedom. With this new method, you'll discover how to optimize your income and debt management like never before, keeping more of your hard-earned money where it belongs. Want to be among the first to take advantage of this innovative debt solution? Contact me at darren@legacypointgroup.com. That's DEREN at legacypointgroup.com to join the waiting list and stay in the loop. Your journey to a debt-free life is just around the corner. Stay tuned.
So for a lot of our clients, their practice is their most valuable asset. They have a lot of their net worth tied up in their business. especially when we're talking about large multi-million dollar practices that are very valuable in the DSO private equity world. And a lot of our clients are looking to diversify and de-risk, to monetize a piece of that business and then spread that capital out among other asset classes so that their net worth is not so tied up to their own two hands and their business. So I think unlocking the value of the business can allow you to diversify and create some other wealth creation opportunities that are not currently available to you within your own four walls. So I think it's a massive vehicle to wealth creation. And when we talk about monetizing the business, especially if we're talking about a DSO or private equity transaction, there's massive tax arbitrage associated with it as well. So everybody's focused on what is going to be the tax implications associated with that cash at closing. But what often gets lost is when you are monetizing your business and taking that cash at closing, you are converting future ordinary income, taxed at your highest tax rate, into a capital gain at close, because most of the sale is going to be taxed as a capital gain. I think we all know both capital gains tax and ordinary income tax are going to go up probably in the relatively near future, especially if a particular administration wins this election. So the tax arbitrage associated with monetizing your business, converting that ordinary income into a capital gain while capital gains tax is low is meaningful, along with freeing up that cash and investing it across other asset classes and creating diversification.
Now, I know this isn't, I guess I don't know. This may not be specifically what you guys advise on, but do you feel like there are steps that a dentist should take in kind of preparation to be financially ready for a transition? Or do you feel like that kind of all happens as they receive that money and go employ it in something else? You think that they should start to work towards that ahead of time? Or is this the event that catapults them into diversification and wealth kind of preservation at that point? What are your thoughts on that?
I think just as you should start planning for your practice transition a year or two before you look to sell the business, you should also need to prepare for what you're going to do with the money and develop relationships with people that are going to be good stewards of your money early, right? Develop that trust along the way so that when you have this windfall, you know who's going to be the shepherd of that capital and where that capital is going to be deployed, rather than, crap, I'm getting $4 million next week. What do I do with it? I don't know the people. I don't know the places to put it. I'm big on being proactive rather than being reactive. I think both when it comes to selling your business as well as deciding what you're going to do with the capital, start early.
Yeah, that's been my experience is people, it's a lot to really digest what these concepts are when it comes to investing, diversification, maybe if you want to get into alts and alternative investing, to get familiar with players and concepts and different optionality as far as asset classes and all that kind of stuff. It takes a long time, months to years, to potentially really feel comfortable and familiar with what you're doing. So you're right, getting to that finish line and receiving that big chunk of change, you're way too late in the game to really do anything with that. So that's where we were talking a little bit before. That's where my kind of private group, we're trying to educate, we're trying to give people the knowledge with which they might do. I think that was me. I don't know where I cut off. I'll just pretend like I didn't say anything yet. Yeah, I think it's really important for you to get educated and to learn what your options are when you receive that cash. It takes literally months to potentially years to really understand the optionality when it comes to investing, whether it's traditional stock stuff or alternative stuff, getting comfortable and familiar with the players and the optionality, the different asset classes. That's where kind of my private group is. We're offering that education where you can hopefully eventually do something with it. But my whole point is just to offer the education and the knowledge around what you can do. If you receive this money, most of it's capital gains. That's obviously lower tax than your ordinary income, but it's still tax. And if you don't want to have to pay that huge bill, there are things you can do. And so I think it's really smart to be thinking about that ahead of time, months to years, in the same way that you're preparing for the sale directly months in advance, maybe years in advance. I think you should be thinking about investing and preparation and diversification, especially with what you're going to do with this big lump of lump sum, what you should be doing ahead of time as well. So I appreciate you sharing that and that concept. Um, I actually listened to a recent interview, well, maybe not that recent, the interview with you on Dennis Advisors. Shout out to Ryan Isaac. I don't think he knows who I am, but listen to you guys talk about DSOs and the rapid growth there. Where do you see the DSO market heading in the next 5 to 10 years, and how do you think practice owners should prepare for the changes that are happening in the market?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see how, all the private equity consolidation plays out in our industry. I don't think it's going to slow down. Over the past couple of years, given that some DSOs were operationally a little bit over their skis or financially over their skis because they bought so many practices, took on so much debt post-COVID, and then interest rates went up substantially and the capital markets constrained, you have seen a little bit of a slowdown in the consolidation comparative to 2021 and 2022, 2023 and 2024, not quite as robust. And the ADA just released statistics that only about 15, max 20% of dentists are currently affiliated with the DSOs. So there's still plenty of meat on the bone for private equity investment in our industry. We're probably in inning 3 of a 9-inning game. So I think the consolidation is going to continue for the next 5, 7, 10 years. And at some point, we're going to reach a tipping point where the industry is so consolidated that new private equity capital will likely not come into the industry. New DSOs will likely not be formed. There will be a consolidation of the consolidators. And eventually there may only be 20 or 30 DSOs as opposed to 700 DSOs out there. But I think it's going to take 7 to 10 years to get to that tipping point where, those consolidators start to actually consolidate and the number of DSOs declines. I think private practice is going to continue to thrive and do well. So I don't think the sky is falling, but I do think that there are some headwinds that private practice is facing that dentists need to pay attention to and learn from both the mistakes and the successes of the larger players, the DSOs. So the days, I think, of the single doc practice, 4 operatories doing under $1 million, those practices over the next 10 years are going to go extinct. And earlier in the episode, I mentioned that those businesses have become increasingly harder to sell to private buyers. Private buyers are looking to buy larger, more elite practices than they were 5 to 10 years ago for multiple reasons. But I think the evolution of group practice, multiple doctors practicing under one roof, the evolution of multi-specialty practices, and then being wise about creating and leveraging economies of scale to create negotiating power, both better reimbursement rates from payers as well as better pricing with vendors is going to be critically important. And those are the things that DSOs have done well to increase revenue and increase margins. So I think private practice is going to have to evolve to thrive long term, but there's always going to be a place for private practice. To some degree, dentistry will always be a boutique industry. That said, the DSO private equity consolidation of our industry is not going away. And as we start to see interest rates decline and the capital markets open back up, I'm pretty bullish that DSOs are going to be very active in 2025 and 2026.
Thanks for joining us in part 1 of this enlightening discussion with Brannon Moncrief from McLerran and Associates. We covered some key insights into the evolving dental landscape, including the impact of DSOs and private equity on practice transitions. Brannon shared valuable strategies for maximizing practice value, common pitfalls to avoid, and how to weigh the emotional factors of selling a practice. Be sure to tune in for part 2, where we'll dive deeper into practical advice for navigating a sale and look at what the future holds for the dental industry. Thanks for listening in to Wealth Beyond the White Coat. Your time and attention mean a lot to us. If you found value in today's episode, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform and share it with your colleagues and friends. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more professionals like you striving for financial freedom. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your financial health. Thank you for joining us on this journey to wealth beyond the white coat.